Linus, what gives? You didn't actually test the top 20 games that are over on Twitch. So I guess we're just gonna have to do it for you. Hey guys, Turkey here, hope you're having a good one. Now, I know y'all are chomping at the bit to see just how well my hacking deck compares to the official Steam Deck performance numbers presented by our friend The Fox, as well as Linus Tech Tips and Gamers Nexus. But as of the time of this recording, I have yet to see those videos. They haven't been uploaded. So guys, give me another week to digest the numbers and to do a proper analysis between my hacking deck and the Steam Deck. And I'm gonna do you one better and see if there is a dedicated desktop graphics card that matches the performance just fine. But that'll have to wait till next week. Now, we've been covering Steam Deck a whole lot here on the channel, and we've been talking more broadly when it comes to Linux gaming in general, and I've found that the Linux Gaming's Challenge presented by LTT between Linus and Luke has been a very good series to watch, so I'll post a link down in the description so y'all can kind of get yourself up to speed on Linus and Luke's experience when gaming on Linux for an entire month on their dedicated gaming setup. But there's one thing that I don't like about those videos, and that's just the lack of popular games being tested by LTT. Now, don't get me wrong, guys, the LTT series is actually a really good starting point for the conversation because they highlight some of the benefits of gaming on Linux, as well as several of the different downfalls of the environment that just keep it from going into the mainstream for now. But one thing is lacking in their entire coverage, and that is actual testing the different games that are popular for most gamers. And even in their third episode, they mentioned they're going to test all of the 20 top games that are listed on twitch.tv, but they never really talked about it. And that is really kind of a sad state of affairs because there's actually a lot of good news to be found within the top 20. So today I'm gonna pick up where Linus and Luke left off, and we're gonna be testing the top 20 or 23 games that are both streamed to Twitch as well as watched on Twitch. So with that, guys, let's start off with
number 20.
NBA 2K22 is the latest installment in the 2K basketball franchise, and I'm quite shocked to see that at ProtonDB.com it is rated as gold supported, which is usually the bare standard for gaming on Linux. However, if you scroll through some of the different comments on ProtonDB, you'll notice that some of them mention that the online matchmaking component doesn't quite work just yet. Now, I don't play sports games on console or PC that often, so I don't really want to invest the money to buy this specific game, but I'm going to take ProtonDB at its word and say that it kind of works, and if you're interested in playing a single-player sporting experience, NBA 2K should work just fine right out of the box.
Number 19.
Coming in at number 19 is Escape from Tarkov, and fortunately, Lutris does have an installer with some pretty good details on how to get it working on your system, but unfortunately, with the latest patches to the game, introducing new anti-cheat measures has unfortunately broken it on the Linux platform, which is a huge bummer, and Linus Tech Tips even mentioned this in their particular video. But however, I don't want to write off these hyper-realistic shooter games as not playable on Linux just yet, because there are some feasible alternatives. Primarily is Arma 3. Now, Arma 3 is a hyper-realistic military simulator with super accurate gun ballistics, as well as access to a whole plethora of different vehicles that you can drive. But what's more impressive about Arma 3 is that it is a military sandbox simulator. So it has support for a broad range of different types of modifications. Granted, I haven't tested a lot of those on Linux myself. So as long as you have the right BattleEye software installed through Steam on your Linux machine and you're connecting to servers that have it configured in the right way, you should be able to play an entire range of different games within the Arma 3 environment.
Number 18.
I tested Overwatch quite a long time ago. I think it was in our first top 10 video that we put here on the channel, and you can go over to Lutris and download the battle.net installer and install Overwatch without a hitch. Now, there are reports that Battle.net is banning some users for using Linux and their gaming systems, but I haven't encountered that myself just yet, so take that for what it's worth and tread lightly if you're wanting to play Overwatch in Linux. But let's also keep in mind there are several different types of alternatives that are out there. I think Smite has been confirmed to work within Steam as well. And then you could also play Warframe if you're looking for a similar, highly mobile shooting environment. So I'll call this a win. And there's also several alternatives that should work just nicely.
Number 17.
I'm not a fan of horror games by any stretch, but a lot of you are playing it over on twitch.tv, and that is Phasmophobia. Now, I don't want to drop a lot of money on games that I'm not going to be playing on a regular basis, but according to the subreddit, it looks like this game works just fine. A lot of y'all are able to play on it, but unfortunately, some of the components of the game don't work just right. I think voice detection is having an issue at this moment. So as long as you're connected through Discord or some other voice app, you should be able to communicate with your team and scare yourself crapless the next time you join in on a game.
Number 16.
I am super bummed that this game's anti-cheat software prevents it from loading up in the first place, because a lot of my guys over on my Discord love to play this game, and we're trying to have some tournaments, and I can't do it when I'm on my Linux setup. So a lot of people will take that as a huge L when it comes to gaming on Linux, but there are some pretty popular arena-based shooters that are available on Linux, most notably Quake Champions. Now, I know a lot of y'all are probably chuckling in your head, but stick with me for a little bit. Quake Champions is a free-to-play game. It actually works inside of Linux as of this recording, and you're able to frag with your friends in a breadth of different game modes. So I think it's a pretty good alternative to Halo, and it even utilizes some of the features that are going to be built into the Steam Deck, like the gyro controls.
Number 15.
I've had a lot of requests here on the channel if Genshin Impact will work on the Steam Deck, and as Luke mentioned in the LTT video, there are some instructions on how to get it installed, but he said they were kind of shady. Well, a lot of time has passed, and fortunately the installer has been updated to be in proper English with some kind of decent instructions, but as I was trying to get it prepped up for this video, I followed the first step, I followed the second step, but once the game is patched and you're actually trying to run it, there's still some documentation issues that are going on that just prevent this from being playable at the moment. Now, I'm a pretty knowledgeable guy myself, but since it requires much more extensive work that's not documented, I'm going to mention this game as not functional for the Steam Deck or for gaming on Linux. However, there are a lot of different other, stylistically similar games, and the gameplay mechanics are similar as well, but I'm not very familiar with the game, so I'm not going to recommend any alternatives for that, but you could do a Google search and see if any of those games would work on Linux.
Number 14.
Next up is PUBG, or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. This is the game that got me started on Twitch, and I have loved playing this game for a really long time. However, if you go and look over at ProtonDB, it has been one of the longest lasting games that are listed as borked in their top 10 list of games. So unfortunately, without some more developer work, this game's just not going to work. But as I mentioned with Escape from Tarkov, PUBG was based off of a game mode built in Arma 3. So if you're looking for a battle royale mode similar to PUBG, you're probably going to be just fine by going into Arma and jumping into one of those types of games. But for now, PUBG is not supported.
Number 13.
Rainbow Six Siege is a very popular game when it comes to the esports scene, and there are some rays of hope when it comes to playing it on Linux as well as on the Steam Deck. Now, we are able to go into the game and launch the benchmark mode, so in theory, this game should work pretty nicely. And we're even able to go into the tutorial maps and actually shoot at some of the AI that's running around in order to get prepped for the game. And just as they said in the LTT video, any chance of jumping into a quick play match at this point is just not gonna work. So this game is not supported, and there's not really any good alternatives to this style of an esport.
Number 12.
Continuing our list of unsupported games is Dead by Daylight. Again, this is another one of those games that uses the easy anti-cheat, and it just doesn't work right now. And unfortunately, Dead by Daylight is a very interesting, horror mechanic, so there's not a lot of, games that actually are similar to this. But I did manage to do a little Googling, and there are a couple games that have, silverish ratings with ProtonDB. And the one that sticks out to me is Last Year the Nightmare. Now, that's a pretty obscure game. I had never heard of it before, but if you're looking for an experience similar to Dead by Daylight, you could possibly try that one out, but I don't want to drop the money on the game, so I'm going to keep that one as not supported.
Number 11.
Now, for all of you gamers that like to play Roblox, you should be in luck when it comes to the Steam Deck as well as gaming on Linux in general. Now, I don't play Roblox myself, but if you go into Lutris and look for a local community installer, there are plenty of instructions available, and it looks like it should work in Linux. And if you go over to the subreddit, it looks like just this past year in 2021, it looks like it's finally enabled to work with multiplayer in mind. So if you were hoping to play Roblox on your Linux machine, it might be worth trying it out.
Number 10.
Kicking us into the top 10 is Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Now, of course, this is a Valve game, so we would expect it to work right out of the box. And sure enough, both the Linux and the Proton-based solutions for it work within our Manjaro installation on our Hackin' Deck. Now, I was able to jump into a couple different community servers for a couple deathmatch sessions, and it worked just fine. And what we got here on the screen is just a bot match to show kind of like the expected FPS we should expect. So if you are hoping to play this on your Steam Deck, Valve is providing updates to improve the user experience as well as some of the performance issues you might see. So I would see CSGO as a great alternative to anyone wanting to play a quick-paced first-person shooter.
Number 9.
Now, I've been watching a lot of Angry Joe these past couple years, and FIFA 22 coming in at number 9, I am not going to be buying this game, and I'm not supporting FIFA and their microtransactions and their rehashing of the same game over and over. However, if you have this game installed and you are wanting to play it on Linux, you should be in good shape as it is reported as gold over on ProtonDB.com. However, there's plenty of other sports ball games that are available over on Steam, so if you're not wanting to support FIFA and their mindless efforts of putting games out there, definitely recommend you guys look for alternatives.
Number 8.
In a shocking twist, I was able to get Rocket League running on my Hackin' Deck. All you have to do is go over to Lutris and install the Epic Game Store. After that, search for Rocket League and bada bing bada boom, the game just runs right out of the box. And I find that great because with the portability of the Steam Deck and the controls for the Steam Deck, this is going to be a great game to play just all around when you're out and about. Now, if you do happen to have a Steam-based code for Rocket League, I do also think that that's going to work right out of the box. I think it's actually Steam Deck verified, but Epic did pull it from the Steam store a while back. But I'm pleased to say that it will work cross-platform and you should have a good time playing it on the deck.
Number 7.
Now, Call of Duty Modern Warfare comes in all sorts of shapes and colors, but I'm going to lump them all into this specific spot, and unfortunately, the anti-cheat software that runs on this, it just prevents the game from loading. I actually tried it out and had some high hopes, but it just isn't working. However, if you're wanting to play this style of fast-paced first-person shooter in a more open map, rather than going to Arma, there is a pretty popular alternative to that, and that is Battlefield 4. Now, there are rumors that Battlefield 5 works with this, but I just wasn't able to get it running on here. But as you'll see here on this screenshot, I was able to play Battlefield 4 in a public map without having any problems. So I definitely recommend y'all check out Lutris, read all of the instructions on how to get it installed, and if you've got access to it on the EA launcher, definitely give it a shot.
Number 6.
Grand Theft Auto 5 has been with us for a long time. I believe it was launched with the PlayStation 3. So it comes as no surprise that a lot of you are playing this over on Twitch as well as watching it on Twitch. And I'm proud to announce that both the single player as well as the online experience will work within Linux. It plays very well at 800p in normal detail settings on my Hackin' Deck. But the one thing I was not able to confirm is if any of the custom launchers like 5M will work within Linux. So there might be mixed results when it comes to some of the more custom options when it comes to Grand Theft Auto Online, but for the most part, this should be a great experience when playing it on the deck.
Number 5.
League of Legends comes at number 5, and since it's a Riot game, I'm not even going to try to get it working on Linux because, As you know, it uses a lot of, anti-cheat software to keep it a level playing field across the board. But it shouldn't come as a surprise that there is a very popular alternative to LOL, and that is Dota 2. As I showed in my leaked verified video, this game is going to work shockingly well, and just like we mentioned with Counter-Strike, it's going to continuously be getting improvements and fixes from Valve itself for controller support. All sorts of other fixes are going to be going in. So instead of playing League of Legends, it might be a good chance to pivot in trying out Dota 2 and seeing just how that works for you.
Number 4.
And in a similar vein to League of Legends, Valorant comes in at number 4. Again, a very extensive anti-cheat system exists within Windows, so I'm not even going to try it on my Linux box. But again, there's plenty of alternatives to this game, such as Counter-Strike like we mentioned, as well as Overwatch. So if you're looking for this type of game, there are some pretty popular alternatives that are available that work on Linux, so it might be a good time to pivot away from this specific game and go support some of those other alternatives.
Number 3.
One of the biggest disappointments when it comes to gaming on Linux is embodied with Apex Legends. It's a free-to-play battle royale game that has extremely addictive gunplay, and it's just unfortunate that we can't enjoy it within gaming on Linux or on our Steam Decks. Now, there are some rays of hope that I do want to highlight. There have been some tweets from the developer saying that they will get it running on the Steam Deck before its launch. And we've also seen notifications and documentation from Valve themselves that they're trying to streamline and make it more apparent on how to enable EAC within your games to work on Linux. So with those two news stories, I do have high hopes that this is going to work within Linux and for the Steam Deck itself. But for now, we're just going to have to keep this one as a big L on our scoreboard.
Number 2.
Despite the huge L with Apex Legends, we get a juggernaut of a game going in with a W on our list, and that is Minecraft, and specifically the Java version. If you are wanting to play the Microsoft version, there might be a way to get it installed, but I don't recommend it. Java is natively supported within Linux itself, and you can download the official installers and get it running without a sweat. My daughter's been playing on my Hack and Deck while I've been working on other projects, and for the most part, it works just right out of the box. Now, there are a couple caveats. If you're running a bunch of different mods, or if you're running different launchers like CursedForge, those may not work within Linux, so your mileage may vary with your Minecraft enjoyment, but like I said, it works with Linux, it works with my Manjaro setup, and since it's a very lightweight game, I don't foresee it being a problem for anyone gaming, even if you're on like a little handheld device.
Honorable mentions.
Now, before we get to number 1, there are 3 games that I want to put in kind of like a honorable mention list that are pretty popular when it comes to being viewed on Twitch. Now, first up is going to be Path of Exile. Now, this is very popular free-to-play game, and it's kind of like a spiritual successor to Diablo. So if that's your kind of jam, go for it. But if you're also looking for an alternative to that, I've proven that Diablo 2 Resurrected, it works just fine within Lutris. Now, keep in mind though, if you're playing it on the Steam Deck, controller support within Lutris might be less than ideal, so I definitely recommend doing Path of Exile through Steam and picking up some of the community Steam input configurations to get going in that game. Next up is Rust, and just like Luke mentioned in his LTT video, I can confirm that Rust works within Linux and Proton. But there's one caveat that I have to stress. You have to find a server that does not have EAC enabled. And if you're familiar with Rust, there are plenty of cheaters out there, and that's not an ideal setup for playing this particular game. And if you're not wanting to get salty and rage quit and throwing your deck against the wall, maybe try out Valheim. Just like LTT confirmed in their video, I can confirm that it will work just as well on the Steam Deck. I'm able to get anywhere between 40 and 60 FPS when running through Proton, and if you want to try the Linux version of it out, you'll get a similar experience as well. So across those 2 games, you have a good opportunity to play this kind of survival game. And if y'all are interested, let me know down in the comments and we can make a community Steam Deck server for Rust and Valheim so you guys can join and not have to worry about all of those hackers and the people on the keyboard and mouse. So let me know down in the comments if that's something you guys want to see. And lastly, this game keeps creeping up into the most viewed list, and that is Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now, it didn't have a very positive launch when it came out a few months ago, but Rockstar has been updating it and it is becoming a better experience. And if you want to run it on Linux, all you have to do is go to Lutris and search for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and you'll install your Rockstar launcher and install the game, and it'll work just fine.
Number 1.
Now, of course, the number 1 slot, unfortunately, is Fortnite. It's hugely popular from a player base, and from a viewer's perspective on Twitch, it's constantly at the top of the stack. But unfortunately, it uses easy anti-cheat, so of course we're unable to join into any online matches. But I do have a ray of hope. And just like that, our hopes and dreams are shattered. Just this past 24 hours, Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic Games, has proclaimed that Fortnite will not be working with EAC on the Steam Deck. However, there is a big effort underway to maximize easy anti-cheat compatibility with the Steam Deck. It's just not gonna work for Fortnite. So yeah, gonna have to cut this part of the video, so continue on. Now that's a whole bunch of games that we've tried out here on our Hack and Deck Steam Deck setup, so let's go ahead and do a brief summary and put it all into bigger perspective. Of the top 23 games as reported from Sully Gnome, I am proud to report that I have tested 15 of these games. Now, of the remaining 8, there are reports that 4 of them have a gold or higher score over at ProtonDB, but the other 4 are rated as silver or lower, or just outright borked as of ProtonDB. Now, of the 15 games that I have tested, 7 of them do not work within Linux, and they do not work within our Steam Deck. But I am proud to report that 8 of these games do work just fine on the Steam Deck. Now, I do want to take a minute here and kind of deviate from what Linus Tech Tips reported in their games, and I want to make the numbers look a little bit better by saying that there are some alternatives to the failing games that are both popular and work on Linux and should be noted as being a good replacement. Of the 11 games that are reported as failing, I would say that 6 of those have a potential replacement that is both popular and actually functioning within Linux. So to net it all out, of the top 23 games that are both watched and played over at twitch.tv, 18 of those games either directly work in Linux or have an appropriate replacement that is both popular and functionally works within Linux. Now, I know a bunch of y'all are going to disagree with me down in the comments on just how I lumped those 6 alternates into that figure, but hear me out for just a second. Now, I completely agree with most of the things that Linus and Luke came up with their video, primarily that if you're looking for a direct one-to-one swap between Windows and Linux, it's just not ready for prime time, and if you're looking for that, direct mapping experience, it's not going to be a good time for you, and it might just be worth waiting a little bit while longer. However, if you're willing to make the jump and trying out Linux instead of your Windows PC, or if you're picking up your Steam Deck once it comes and launches on the 25th, I think this is a great time to try out some of these other games to see if you can get a very similar experience. Take, for example, Halo Infinite. Now, I know a lot of people on Windows love this game, but if you try out Quake Champions, you get that arena shooter feel, you get the fast gunplay mechanics as well. And let's not forget, it's free to play and it's cross-platform. So to address one of the criticisms that Luke had from Linus Tech Tips, you can ask your friends if they would like to try this game out and give it a whirl. You can play it on your Linux setup and they can play it on their Windows setup, and you should overall have a great experience as a team, which is one of the primary reasons why we game in the first place. And let's take it a step further. If you're wanting to try and fill some of those gaps with games that are just broken right now, there's plenty of other games and franchises that are equivalent enough to fill those voids. Take, for example, Battle Royales. Arma 3 is such a great platform. You can play Wasteland, which is kind of like a Battlefield type of game mode. You can play their Battle Royale mode. And there's even kind of a Grand Theft Auto mode of Arma Life that is hugely popular on the YouTube scene. So let's not discredit some of these less popular games and franchises that could be a direct replacement from within Linux. And I think as a community, it might be a good opportunity for us to highlight what actually works and trying to see if that starts to stream down into the mainstream. And overall, I think that's going to help bridge the gap for some of the Windows to Linux conversions. But with all that said, guys, I'm really excited on where Linux gaming is going to be going in the near future. And as for all of my recent Steam Deck subscribers, I'm pleased to say that you guys are going to be able to find plenty of games that work just as good as what's over on Twitch, and it should be a very good gaming experience overall. And that's my video today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've liked what you see and you're looking forward to my Steam Deck versus Hack and Deck video next week, definitely hit subscribe down below and hit that bell icon so you know when I upload a video. And as always, check out the community tab. I like to post polls over there to see what you guys want to see for my next video. And I'm very active with you guys on Discord, on Twitter, and all the different social medias. So guys, I appreciate y'all sticking to the end of the video, and I'll catch you in the next one, Turk Force.